welcome to today's podcast. I'm Florence from Partnership Publishing, and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by John Miller, the author of What's in a Year, A Countryman's Tale Through the Seasons. For those that can see, here it is. A beautifully written and heartfelt memoir that invites us to a step into the rhythm of the British countryside. Today, we'll be talking to John about the inspiration behind his book, his love of the natural world, and what we can all do to slow down and reconnect with nature in our own lives. John, thank you so much for joining me today. Let's begin.
Good. Excellent. Florence, lovely to see you.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. Now, for those that are listening, it potentially could be helpful to maybe give a little bit of background about yourself and where the inspiration for this epic book came from.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's actually important for the context of the book anyway.
Mm.
So I left a pretty busy corporate world about 2 years ago, and I just couldn't believe how the world had changed, primarily in the UK, but elsewhere as well, from a wildlife, what's around. And so I wanted to do something about that. What do I do the rest of my life? And so I set myself the task of three things. I said, one, I want to become a charity for something that helps salmon because I just love salmon, great creatures,
Yeah.
and the same thing for curlews.
Yeah.
So I'm a trustee for Atlantic Salmon Trust and Curlew Action. And then I spent a year really, what does that mean? And looking at all the different things going on. I just had this fantastic year of traveling around, seeing what's happening, and I said I've got to put this in a book. So the third thing I set myself target was to get a book published and do that. So that's obviously where we are today.
Yeah.
And it's really I get, even when I was working corporate life, I get WhatsApps nearly every day from friends going, "What's this, John?" And there's a picture of something, a fish, a slug, a snail, I don't know, whatever it is, yeah. And they say,
Yeah.
"What's this?" And I'm like their sort of online chat for natural history type
You're that guy.
guru. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
that guy. And so, and it was very clear also that there's lots being done in the conservation world at the moment, which I might not necessarily agree with. And there's lots of nuances to conservation. So the book, although we talk in there quite a bit about that there's fishing and there's gardening and there's wildlife, it's actually there to help people open their eyes to what's around
Mhm.
and maybe ask a little bit more curious question about maybe some of the provenance of their food,
Mhm.
or I've got nothing wrong per se, let's say, with rewilding, but maybe just rewilding everything is not the answer to everything,
Mhm.
and it's not.
No.
And 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 so it's to actually open people's eyes, but also open their minds a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think that was the biggest thing for us here. Um, when we read your initial submission those months ago, and a huge part for us is to give people a voice through sharing untold stories. But also we're incredibly open. It aligns, it parallels with our beliefs massively, but also we learned so much. And we just kept finding ourselves reading these books, yes, yes, agreeing and feeling like, no, this is that kind of wake up call as well, a little bit. If
Hmm.
you're already on that path and you know a little bit, and then realizing, oh, okay, and allowing yourself to question everything ultimately. Yeah, it was a huge reflection of the book. Included within the book, so you obviously weave a lot of those themes that we've already mentioned into your writing. You also have a bit of a keen eye, not least for being that guy of knowing what's what, but also taking photos. This book, What's in a Year, is filled. It is full color. It's beautifully kind of filled with so many photographs taken by yourself.
Yeah, and I must put my hand up. They're not all absolutely me that took the photos,
No,
but
well, the
but but
real
but
though,
no, no,
real.
no, exactly. So what you're saying, they're absolutely real, every one of those photos was taken in 2023 or early 2024,
Mm,
and I was there. It
yeah.
just might not have been exactly me at that place. So they're all absolutely got the place, a sense of place
Mm,
is there, and they're all part of the story. It's
mm.
just that someone there with me might have had a probably did actually have a better photo than the one than the one I took. And I do credit them where obviously
Yeah.
where that is the case. But those are yeah, they're all taken in that time.
It's amazing.
And I think you as a publisher, it's always a tricky doing a book, and the more photos you have, the more it costs and all the rest of it. But it was optically to tell a optical story as well as the written word of what went
Yeah,
on in that year.
yeah. The way the book is laid out, we go month by month. Um, where, I mean, it's we're invited to slow down. It's observational. Um, what inspired you to capture that rhythm of the seasons? Was it purely that is your life now? That's what you're doing? What kind of in ultimately inspired that? And the writing, I guess, because it's totally different to anything you've necessarily done before.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the seasons. I mean, each, as you said, each chapter is a different month, so it's 12
Mhm.
chapters. That's what I do did in that year in those months. So it just naturally falls into that, and also I think it helps the reader. It does give them a bit of structure. I was with someone yesterday and they said, "Oh, John, I've just read June because they're going up to Scotland to do some fishing or something." And said, and I like that bit about that. So it's something you can go back to and see what's there. And all of this goes back to my piece about getting people to open their eyes a bit. So if you're in that month,
Yeah.
obviously you won't have everything, but it have quite a few things that are happening in that
Yeah.
month in there. And the obvious one is some of the cooking from the garden and stuff because that's very, very seasonal.
Yeah, very much so, and delicious. And again, it allows people to really look at that whole entirety of where the food is coming from, how it grows. A lot of this is down to education as well, ultimately. I know you strongly believe that ultimately this is what this book is. We learn so much, and we are educated um, through the observations that you share with us ultimately. Um, how important or how do you feel we can alter or change that so much?
Um, so first of all, just to clarify, absolutely, I'm not a scientist.
Mm,
What I observe is what I write about,
mm,
and I don't know. There might be the odd thing someone says, "Oh, that's not right," whatever. But hey, I I know what I see, and sometimes that isn't written down, so that's a good
yeah.
thing. Um, but altering that, and particularly in the conservation world,
Mm,
um, is I sometimes think we're chasing our tails. There's just so much to do, and you're having to educate people all the time. And so there's a quite a little bit in the book about a new GCSE for natural history.
mm,
And it's about, well, if we don't teach our children, we're going to hide them to nothing. And, as each generation goes by, there's less and less taught about nature.
mhm.
And the natural history, I absolutely believe, and by the way, the government has now agreed it, which is great news because that's
Yes,
been difficult.
congratulations. Yeah.
And that's all thanks to a certain Mary Colwell that started this, wow, 11, 12 years ago now. So well done to
Wow.
her for keep pushing that.
Mm,
Is natural history deserves, it's big enough to have its own GCSE.
mm.
It's not
Yeah.
like 5% of geography or 2% of biology.
Mm,
Um, and another thing which is very special to that is some kids writing essays isn't their best way of
no.
doing exams or whatever. This gives an opportunity, hopefully, anyway, when it's all finalized, to go out and do more fieldwork observations that'll help them as
Mhm,
well. And also, hopefully, it will extend to an A level as well. And then you can get a
mhm,
continuum between primary school,
mhm.
GCSEs, A levels, and university.
Mm. And that sounds honestly incredible. It makes you want to be able to go back to school, to be honest. And you find that that is with this book and everything that you so wholeheartedly believe in. And I think again aligns with our passion here so, so much and why we're so excited genuinely about what's in a year being out there because it does start with education. It does start with us teaching and with children specifically. Um, we speak about our passions, particularly surrounding conservation, in the book. What do you feel are the most urgent challenges facing our countryside today?
Um, and the first thing I'll jump at to answer that
Mm.
question is I think that whole question, to
Mm,
a certain extent, has been hijacked by the climate crisis.
okay. Yeah.
And then, secondly, I would say that some people who are very passionate for conservation have been put off it lately because
Mm,
there's a lot of extreme views and some of this as well, and that's pushed people away.
mm,
So, so maybe if I narrow the
yeah.
question down a bit to sometimes what could you, what can you do individually? And I
Mm,
think if you can do something individually, you can start really small.
mm,
You can join something in your local area, um, and maybe there's something you particularly like. Like I like salmon and curlews, right? Maybe
yeah.
maybe you like, as I said, slugs or spiders. Who
Yeah.
knows? And
Yeah.
they all need some help somewhere.
Yeah.
But if you're interested in the provenance of your food and where it comes from, and
Mm,
your food is organic,
mm,
and you're looking after something local, then
mm,
you can have a big difference. And I do worry that sometimes we have some very large
mm,
NGOs
mm,
that have an awfully big payroll, and
mm,
it's all about making sure they get the money in for that payroll, and maybe they forgot about what they're looking after.
mm,
So that is something to be wary of
mm.
when someone comes shaking the tin. Or they don't do that anymore, do they? Say, put
Yeah.
your QR code in, whatever.
Yeah. You can
Yeah,
scan.
you don't shake the tin anymore.
Yeah.
Um, is where's all that money actually really going?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Again, we go back to question everything, isn't it? Ultimately.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, are there, so going to fishing, we know that it's one of your main loves that you share in the book. Fishing, gardening, observing wildlife. Um, which of these activities, I know you mentioned that you're trustees of certain
Hmm.
boards as well. Which activity do you feel brings you the most peace? Because there's that mental health element. Again, not one to kind of use phrases that have been blown out either
Hmm.
now, but we talk about finding peace and that quiet. Which kind of form of activity or a combination of all do you feel is your go-to?
I think any of them can be. It could be just be walking the garden, but let me bring you back to your specific point about
Mm,
fishing because it does hold a very special point for me on that.
mm,
So when I was traveling, flying all over the world, virtually every other month,
mm,
the 1 week then I used to really look forward to is a week on the River Dee in Aberdeenshire fishing with some mates. Now I've been doing that for 30 plus years now with the same guys, and that week we don't go off the estate. We have all our food and stuff there, and we barbecue lunch and evening, and it's just great fun. But when I look back, and people used to say, "Oh, you're going on holiday," was actually quite hard because we used to fish all night and fish all day as well. But it was no, even then, before let's say mental health
mm,
went higher up the agenda
mm.
in conversation, we used to say, "Oh, that's my mental week. That's my week for my mind." We
Okay.
used to say
Yeah.
that, yeah, and that can go back 15 years ago. We were saying that.
Yeah.
That is how I fix my mind once a year.
Wow, okay, that's interesting, especially from that corporate, I guess not necessarily
Yeah,
rat race, but that environment, 24/7. Um,
yeah, and the bit that, apart from the obvious, you're in a nice countryside and fishing with great friends as well. Well, so two things. One is you got the friends to add to it, so that's another piece of mental health. But the biggest thing I always said on that was when you're in that corporate, it's not just corporate life. Lots of people are in a massive time thing every day, yeah. And you look at your calendar and a digitized calendar and what's in there. The fact that that week I can sleep whenever I want to sleep in a 24-hour period. I can eat whenever I want to eat. I can drink whenever I want to drink. I have nothing that says I've got to do this at X
yeah,
time. And that's pretty good.
freedom.
And then
Mm,
if you're listening to this and you've never done fly fishing, the other big thing
mm,
on that is
mm,
fly fishing is not the same as when you're fishing with a float rod on a canal and you just sit there waiting for something to take your bite.
Mm,
You're moving all the time. Every cast you make,
mm,
you concentrate, and therefore your mind is taken away from whatever else you've got.
yeah, big change, big difference.
Yeah.
No, sounds incredible. And you obviously speak about that as well, in the book as well. And there are some photos as well.
Yeah, there are some relaxing photos in there about some of my mates fishing. You're absolutely right. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's not a fishing book.
No, it's not. It really isn't. And like you say, it's then paired with some fantastic gardening moments, but also recipes, obviously there's a huge influence for you with gardening,
Mm.
and then kind of growing your own. And it's taking that habit even more so. I know even for ourselves here in the office, we have our vegetable gardens, and even that process of planting seeds or knowing what to plant, preparing and planning to then sowing, and then the trial and error that goes along with that. But it allows you to really actually slow down and enjoy those months, those seasons. You become a
Yeah.
lot more aware. And actually, you enjoy when it gets to January because there's so much to look forward to plan and prepare. Um, I do feel that, yeah, your book really does emphasize that as well. And then the deliciousness of then how you can combine these seasonal vegetables
Mm.
to create some delicious dishes.
Well, I think that, and there's a plug for you as a publisher here. So when I first went to some publishers to get this published
Mm,
before I got to yourselves, I would get the question, what single genre is it, John?
yeah.
Is it a fishing book? No. Is it a gardening book? No. Is it a nature fluffy animals book? No. Oh, you got cooking? Oh, no, we don't do that. We do single genre. And I said, but that you're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
And the whole point, and by the way, uh, writers used to write about all this stuff together years ago, right? It's just something we've lost for
Yeah.
some reason. And it's probably because we've lost our connection with nature. But it's if you're into field sports and you catch a mackerel or whatever it is, it's then putting it with what you've grown in the garden and bringing the whole
Yeah.
thing together.
Yeah.
It's all one. And I get very frustrated with people if, for example, they practice field sports, but they're not naturalists. I don't think they should do it if that's the case. Although I'm not hectoring in the book, let's say.
No, yeah. I'd agree.
What I do hope is to quietly get my opinion across about what I think is good and what I think is bad. But that's up for you guys to read it to check whether that's true or not.
Absolutely. And honestly, for anyone that is listening or watching this conversation, we genuinely would urge you. It is getting rave reviews already. And we're talking, it's been out weeks. There's a fantastic review that went featured in Country Life magazine, who I have now also seen. They've got David Beckham on the front cover for next month. So
I missed it by
we missed it by
by one
one
week. Yeah.
month. Yeah, one week. Yeah. Um, but we genuinely, it is receiving incredible reviews and national press, soon to be international. So it's an incredibly exciting time for the launch of this book. And you mentioned and you touched on there just ever so slightly, John, what you'd like for people to take away from the book. What would you say your overarching mission, if you like, for this step one, if you like, or one of three missions that you gave yourself? Yeah, what would you say that would be?
Um, Find something that you love. It could be a plant, as I said, or anything, right? But probably start with understanding a bit more about the provenance of your food.
Mm, yeah.
Just that curious nature. I talk about it briefly. I think if I remember rightly in the book. You'll have and look. First of all, I've got no issue with someone being vegetarian, right? That's fine.
Mm,
Um, but I don't understand how you could import all these avocados from California when we got a massive water shortage out there and fly them all across the world.
mm,
Yet you can't eat a pigeon in your own garden. I just don't understand that. So there's some things that ideologically people will probably find they just don't get with me, but there's some things I don't
Yeah.
understand by the
Yeah.
people. And the other big one, of course, is farm salmon. You know, it's just
Yeah.
like
It's
it's
awful.
how that is still allowed to be sold. I
Yeah.
do not understand, and
No.
it is destroying the habitats where you have this in our sea lochs around Scotland.
It really is awful. It's bad. It's
And I've
beyond.
got some pictures in the book actually of
Mm,
um, someone who went into one of the salmon pens and took
mm,
some photos in there.
mm.
And I'll give you a stat. About 14 million salmon died in the salmon pens last year in
Really.
it's probably across the UK, but it's 14 million. You imagine if 14 million cows
Mm,
died in a field, yeah?
yeah,
There'd be an
exactly.
outcry. And okay, they're not warm-blooded, whatever that means from a sentient point of view. That is just bad
Mm,
husbandry, if
mm,
nothing else.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
You know, and the west coast of Canada, they've now banned these open net salmon farms because the herring industry, all the herring were dying, they got parasites from the salmon.
Mm,
So the herring industry lobbied to get them banned,
mm,
which just shows you something that's quite an important fact to take away.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, for those listening, that's exactly what this book is about. You're reading, you're connecting with not least the seasons, but month by month. Whether it's on a lighter level, you're connecting with your food or what's in the garden, the birds that are around you. But then we go just that little bit deeper and we
Mm.
question. We just question.
But
Um,
it is hope. As I said, it's not it's not a rant.
no, no, no.
I think that's some of the problem we've got with a lot of these things. They
Yeah,
do become a rant, and that just turns
yeah, it has
people
to. Yeah,
away.
yeah,
Um,
it's true. Yeah, very much so. We're teaming and combining this with pure observation. Um, and we get to enjoy it through the months. And ultimately, when we start to just question and go that little bit deeper, you allow us to explore that and go away from your work and your book, but you allow us to just delve into that a little bit more if we felt like we wanted to. Um,
yeah,
but it's a great book as a starting point, especially if you are listening to this and you're like, no, I need to know a little bit more about this. I'd love to know more. It's a great starting point. It's a great book to kind of you can genuinely dip in and out of it as well, not least because
mm.
it's month by month, but um it's not a lot to digest. You can literally dip in, and because of the photographs throughout the book, it's really, yeah, kind of laid out to help the reader, to help us understand.
Yeah, and you know, and maybe there's one thing in the book you find interesting. You want to go and find something a bit more in depth in it, or science of that, whatever it may be.
Mm,
And there will be people that know far more detail than me, whatever that is.
yeah.
But it's there to when I talk about that WhatsApps at the beginning and people asking what's this or what's that,
Mm,
it's there to just say, well, have a look at this because there may be some things there you've maybe heard about but never really thought about them. It might just raise a question and make you a little bit
yeah.
more curious.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, I love that. And for those that are listening and kind of have that pen to paper, I guess, for themselves, like, is there any kind of words maybe of encouragement, or how have you found that journey, putting pen to paper?
Um, well, personally, it's great because it's like,
Mm,
you know, if I can't sing whatever, but if you wrote a song and you could sing, basically you're trying to express something that you can't do in just words or
mm,
talking, yeah?
yeah,
And so a book is a way of expressing stuff that you just want to get out
yeah,
there, right?
yeah, yeah,
Um, so it's great from that point of view. And I I physically get excited when I'm sort of like writing something and I really enjoy it. You know, I get a real buzz from it. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's amazing.
But I'm not I write a bit every day, but I don't like write whole days. I'm best in the morning
Mm.
after breakfast, I've gone for a run, whatever it is, sit down with coffee, and then write for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That is great. And then I'll go for a wander off somewhere else.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I also I feel with your writing, you are an avid writer. You, for those that would like to connect with you as your publishers and how we represent you, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for to anyone that did want to get in touch with us to book. So for public engagements, speaking engagements, signings, literacy festivals, etc. We are taking bookings. The same goes for interviews. You are known on Scribehound for your writing, so I know definitely to kind of urge people to go connect with you on there. Um, how else would you like people to connect with you? And they might have questions for you themselves. You know, they're reading your book and it's like, oh, need to ask John. Yeah, how's the best way?
So I have a website, johnmillernature.com.
Yeah,
Um, because as I moved from corporate life, I thought I'd better how do I sort of get people to know me, know who I am. It's this complete second life in a way. And on that, I have a blog of what's going on. I do. Some of my articles are in there.
yeah,
I can do signed books to send out if people want them. So that's there. And my email's in there as well.
yeah,
And my Instagram, John
yeah.
Miller, author Wiltshire.
Yeah,
It's
it's all there.
hands up. That's all new, so it hasn't got many people on it yet. So I need more followers than that. But I'm not like one of these people that really worries about those things. But yeah, johnmillernature.com.
Yeah, amazing.
Um, and that's why I sort of
Yeah.
curate
Well,
curate everything together, if you like.
yeah. No, that's perfect. And again, we'd urge people to go there, connect with you. The book, What's in a Year? A Countryman's Tale Through the Seasons, is available now. It is out and available in all good bookshops, and online, international. Thank you so much for your time today, John, and for this conversation. Is there any kind of ending, parting note that you'd like to leave on? Maybe,
I would just say, and it sounds a bit corny to say at the end of this podcast, I'll thank you, Hannah, as a publisher, but I must just say that, obviously. But
yeah,
but I do mean that genuinely. If
yeah.
it sounds a bit corny, it's up to you sort of getting me to say that, but it wasn't. So that's true.
No, no, not
Um,
at all.
I would just say to people, just be a bit more curious about the world about you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's really what it's all about.
yeah,
And just question things.
yeah. Love it. Thank you so, so much. We'll hopefully be speaking to you again real soon.
Okay. Thanks, Florence.
Bye.
Bye.